Wow, that was really emotional. Trying not to cry back there. You know, that's actually kind of a form of research by experience. And like, one of the most common forms of research that I see is scientific method. And you want to know who loves the scientific method? Our next speaker, Shari.
Have you ever had a question that you couldn't find the answer to? You asked teachers, friends, you Googled it. Maybe if you got desperate enough, you even asked your parents. But no matter what, you couldn't find the answer. Maybe it was even a little weird, like, what happens if I start watering all our houseplants with Coke? Or, are dogs' yawns contagious too? But no matter what you did, you still couldn't find that answer. I have. I wanted to know if there was a correlation between superhero preference and self-esteem. And I couldn't find the answer. But I knew how I could. Science. You know that thing you've been spoon-fed or maybe force-fed since like second grade? But see, science doesn't come out of a textbook. Science is what happens when you try to answer a question that doesn't have an answer yet. During my junior year, I decided to try and answer my question. Is there a correlation between superhero preference and self-esteem? So I started, like most people would, on the all-powerful Google to see if anyone else had answered it, but no one had. So I decided, well, if no one else is going to, I might as well. So from there, I began deepening my understanding of the topic. What is self-esteem? Why do we care about it? How do we measure it? What are superheroes? Why do we pay so much attention to them? How do we categorize them? I knew that in order to be considered trustworthy on this topic, I had to become an expert. And also, by becoming an expert, I would then be able to design a process where I could actually answer my question. So then I moved on to actually figuring out how I was going to answer my question. I decided to give a survey to students at my school that would assess both their superhero preference and their self-esteem. But before I could actually start giving it to students, I had to send it to an internal review board, or IRB. Now, the IRB is this big scientific organization that's composed of doctors and scientists that basically just review procedures to make sure you're not going to give anyone long-lasting psychological trauma. Now, since I was in high school, I was able to get it approved by a board at my school and then move on to testing. I gave my survey to students at my school, and I was able to get a lot of students to take it. Because remember, the creepy man in the van offering you candy is not your friend. The scientist offering you candy is most definitely your friend. 272 surveys later, I had a whole new respect for my teachers because it took me 4 weekends to grade them all. But it was what came after that made the whole thing worth it. See, one of my teachers let me use some stats software she had on her computer so I could develop correlations without having to do all the math by hand. And I was a little nervous at first because I wasn't coming up with anything that would be significant. But then it happened. I found my first significant trend, and let me tell you, I was giddy. Happy Dance came out full swing. I ended up finding 2 significant trends, one between mass vigilante superheroes, so your Batman, Green Arrow, Iron Man, and high self-esteem, and one between humans with superhuman abilities, so that'd be your X-Men, Captain America, the Hulk, and low self-esteem. So I had done it. I'd answered my question. Now I just had to figure out what to do with it, because it wasn't going to do anyone any good just sitting on my computer. And since the American Psychological Association wasn't exactly jumping at the bit to take a submission from a 17-year-old, I decided to take it to my school science fair and go from there. And I did go. From there I went to the district fair, and from district fair I went on to the state fair. Now, state science fair can be a little bit intimidating. Over 1,000 of Ohio's best and brightest young scientists thrown onto an indoor track to compete for glory. Picture Hunger Games, but with more science and someone's already calculated the odds. I spent the whole morning waiting for my judges to come, Snapchatting with my table mates and wondering, how long do I have to stand before it becomes acceptable for me to sit on the table? Eventually, I saw my judges coming my way, and I got really, really excited. Until I realized I'd been given the ultimate curse of any psychology project: engineers. I go through my whole spiel feeling confident because I knew I had done good science. All my conclusions were backed by fact and my data was good. I get to the end, my judge looks at my board, nods a couple of times, and says, "I guess I just don't get it," and walks away. Now that's my story, but it's not necessarily unique. We as high schoolers can do amazing science. We can do anything we set our minds to. We have high schoolers developing software to detect drunk drivers from traffic cam footage, HIV tests that give results as quickly as a pregnancy test. The list goes on and on. We possess unfathomable creativity when it comes to the questions we think to ask, whether they be in psychology or biology or chemistry or physics or even engineering. In the immortal words of Adam Savage from Mythbusters, the only difference between science and screwing around is writing it down. So ask your questions, but don't stop there. Find their answers. Sure, those professional scientists may not get it, but we will. We know science isn't just for people with fancy labs and PhDs. It's for anyone with a question they want answered. You never know from where or from whom the next great scientific discovery is going to come from. You can trust me. I'm a scientist.